Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Trey as always.
This is Sparsh here.
This is Luke.
Yes, and welcome back for another Speak True Sports podcast / video. Today we're gonna just jump right into what happened recently. Of course, the NBA Finals, Game 6, Suns versus the Bucks. It was a very exciting game. Luke, I know you're a Suns fan.
Yeah.
Why don't you start it off?
It hurts, man. When the game was coming to a close, I was just sitting there, laying down, eyes closed, arm overhead, like I was like hella pain. But I've had 24 hours to think on it, and I've decided that I'm glad we lost to the Bucks because Giannis gets his first, win. The Bucks they all seem like pretty good guys. Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and the Bucks fan base isn't as annoying as the other Eastern fan bases who would rub it in the Suns' face for 10 years. So we kind of got off the hook there. Still bummed we couldn't win despite 3 games we should have won. But it's a bummer.
Yeah, no, that was a great series. Like, to finally see 2 different teams in quite a while, especially considering how long it's been for the Suns and Bucks to be in this sort of like finals appearance. To see 2 different teams, it's really refreshing to see. And honestly, I had the Suns in 6. But on it, like there was so many games, so many moments where the games honestly could have gone either way. And considering, how far Monty has gone, especially from the season before where they had that 8-0 run in the bubble, but came just short of the playoffs. And then this year they finally get all the way to the finals. I mean, this was a great season for Phoenix. I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. They made it really far. I mean, yeah, it is kind of disappointing, but I'm really proud of what this Phoenix team has done. And same goes to Milwaukee too. They also had an incredible run throughout the series and made some great decisions to get some pieces to get them to the end of that road, right?
Yeah, and fun fact about that, this is the 2nd season in a row that the Bucks gypped the Suns into the postseason. Because this year we lost to the Bucks in the finals. Last season, we had won every game. We were ready to go to the playoffs. And the only thing that had to happen was the Grizzlies had to lose to the Bucks. But in the previous game, Giannis headbutted Mo Wagner and got ejected and suspended. So the Bucks lost by like 20 points to the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies went to the playoffs and lost first round. And the Suns got gypped.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I forgot all about that. Man, this series was I'm not gonna lie. When the Suns went up 2-0, I told myself I'm probably not gonna watch the rest of the series. I felt like at one point it did seem like Suns in 4, or even Suns in 5 or something like that. And the Bucks came back and they won the next 2 games. Like, what? I'm intrigued with the series. Let me check it out again. And I look back at the 2 games they won when they tied it up. And I watched the last 2 games of the series, and I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this series was probably better than last year's finals, in my opinion. Because at one point, you felt like the Suns actually had a chance to win this finals, and then the Bucks just won 4 straight, and obviously won the finals, of course. Last year's finals, never kind of felt, for me, I personally never felt the Heat were going to beat the Lakers. The Lakers kind of had it on lock. So this was a very interesting and very refreshing, like Sparsh was saying, refreshing finals. See 2 teams we haven't seen in the finals in a long time. But there's a lot of things to kind of poke at and pick at this game. One thing I guess we just got to jump right on is Giannis. Giannis put this team on his back. 50 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks. I mean, this was the first time in NBA Finals history where a player has done 50 points, 10 plus rebounds, and 5 blocks. And, it just makes sense when you look at Giannis, because Giannis really took over. People didn't expect him to really hit many free throw shots. I think he was 17 of 19, but he was fouled a lot when you watch the game. There weren't, in my personal opinion, it didn't feel like he was getting kind of a bit of the doubt when it came to a lot of those fouls. The Suns just committed the same foul over and over. Giannis would just drive in and they would hack him and he would go to the line. And you really can't debate that too much. I know there's a lot of controversy with Scott Foster and Chris Paul and that whole situation, which we will touch on in a little bit. But, it's just impressive to see the Bucks, make it this far. I think for me, and a lot of people, I think when they beat the Nets, yeah, I know Kyrie went out in that series, but just them beating Kevin Durant and James Harden, who are two superstars and top 10 players, it just kind of made people feel that the Bucks really earned it, and that this was kind of their moment to really, make or break. Because when you really think about it in hindsight, if Mike Budenholzer didn't win this finals, he possibly could have gotten fired this offseason. So, there's a lot to digest and a lot to really look at when you look at this finals.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis, he was just absolutely dominant. I think his average stat line these finals were 35, 13, 5 assists, and two blocks per game. That's just insane. Those are kind of like Shaq numbers that we have over there. And it's impressive to see that, considering literally 2 weeks ago he hyperextended that knee and that leg went at a 30-degree angle. Everybody was sort of speculating some sort of cartilage tear or something. And then literally the day after, the doctors reveal that there's no structural damage, but there's still nothing really yet to see, how long is he actually out for, or is there any other thing that he's going through. And then you see him in game one, he's kind of testing that knee out. He's kind of going into it. But even then, he was looking like one of the best players on his team. And then after that, he just went on a tear, man. It was just this guy, he wanted it more than literally everybody else. He just out hustled everything. You see him just attack the paint so easily, and also just getting those offensive rebounds, even after the free throws as well, right? He gets he gets those jitters, and sometimes he misses here and there, and he's kind of been inconsistent, with the exception of yesterday, of course. But even after a missed free throw, he'll just go and get that offensive rebound, right? Pass out to someone on the perimeter, and he just created so many opportunities for the team as well. I mean, that was just a spectacular performance, especially yesterday, probably one of the top 5 game performances in the finals for sure.
And I think that's the number one reason they won, not specifically Giannis, but the fact that Giannis every single night played well. In every single game of the series, Giannis played well. And there wasn't a single game for Phoenix where multiple people had great games, or there was no one player that played great in every single game. Every player had some bad night series, and that's why. I mean, Booker was on, Chris Paul was off. Chris Paul was on, Booker was off. Mikal Bridges was struggling. Ayton had a bunch of foul trouble, and that's why we were hacking Giannis, was because Ayton would get 4 fouls by the third quarter, fourth quarter, and then we have Chris Paul and Booker slapping arms because that's all they can do against, the Greek Freak. What are they going to do? Jump, 40 inches in the air and swat it out?
Yeah, there was to have Ayton and Booker kind of play their worst games in such a big game. Game 6 was definitely a big blow to their team and their chances, and obviously would cost them. When you look at Booker was having a great series for most part, and then the last game he just he shoots 8 of 22, and he has 4 personal fouls and 6 turnovers. And then DeAndre Ayton shot 33% and had 5 personal fouls. And, Chris Paul, he had a decent shooting night, but, just seems like the same story. It was a lot of turnovers. He had 5 in this one. And I think there was one in particular that was just really bad, and I think really hurt their momentum in the game. I think it was in the fourth quarter. It was the last 6 to 7 minutes of the quarter, and he just lost his dribble and essentially just gave it up to Holiday. And I just felt like, a lot of these turnovers that he made were in important parts of the games. There is some positive when you look at game 6 for the Suns. For me, I think that Cameron Payne was one of the few positives they had. Even though he played most of his minutes in the first half, he did kind of lift the Suns out of a slump in the first quarter, because they had a really bad shooting night in the first quarter. But Cam Payne, in the second quarter, he really helped them, and he pushed them to I think an 8-0 to 10-0 run, and they eventually took the lead at one point of the game. But then they sat him down for most of the second half, and I didn't really understand that. He was really catching fire, and he was their leading scorer at one period of the game. So I don't know. A lot of weird things happened. I know Frank Kaminsky played a lot of minutes. He wasn't too bad, but obviously he couldn't really do much against Giannis. So that definitely was a big problem. But only reason he really played because, like Luke said, Ayton was in foul trouble.
And Dario Saric was out, who's been our main backup center. Now, he can't do much against Giannis, but if you have Jay Crowder in and Dario Saric, they can kind of keep him out of the paint at least. Like, they can't disrupt the shot that much, but if you can keep Giannis out of the paint and shooting like mid-court shots, then that helps a ton. And we didn't play much Torrey Craig in Game 6, which I don't know why, because he's been our defensive anchor all year.
Yeah, the Dario Saric injury was a lot bigger than it seemed at first, because even though like they got those first 2 games, it was after that, like once Giannis got his groove back, that the Suns really couldn't do anything about it, right? When you look at Giannis's previous sort of playoff series, the one against Toronto in 2019 and 2020 against the Heat, where Giannis lost like 4 straight in that reverse sweep to Toronto, and then if it was like 4-1 against Miami last year. The thing is that Toronto and Miami, they were able to build sort of a wall around Giannis, and they were able to really limit his game to force him to keep shooting those like contested shots. But the thing is, like, when you lose somebody like Sarge, right, you don't really, you start to lose that sort of piece to build that wall. And then, after that, you're sort of having that single coverage with Ayton. And, what Ayton really struggled with sort of this series is like, he wasn't really on sort of Giannis too much. I mean, there were times where he was able to, get Giannis to shoot it from the 3, but there were lots of times, and especially in Game 6, I think Ayton was just sort of like, really nervous this game or something. I think, just sort of like the new experience, but there were just lots of times where just Giannis just blew like right past him, and Ayton really didn't give him that sort of like tight defense to sort of like get him to go try something else. Like there were just lots of times Giannis were even just spinning just like right around him, right? And like considering his like arm span, he's able to get into the basket really easily, right? And yeah, and like when you get Ayton in foul trouble, then you're forcing the Suns to play pretty small, especially against Giannis. And then at that point, they just got well, I mean, what can you do against him, right? Like Luke said, at this point, you're just trying to foul him or just get whatever you can, so you can get him to the free throw line and just hope that he misses, right? But I guess Game 6, that just wasn't his night. He just decided to shoot like miraculously.
Yeah, Luke said someone's name. I think someone I want to talk about. Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder had a really rough night in Game 6. He was 2 of 9 from the 3-point line, and I felt like that was very detrimental to their chances of winning because he was open for a handful of those threes, and he just couldn't knock them down. And I just felt like, I felt like in this elimination game, they did jack up a lot of 3-point shots. The team shot 6 of 25, and I don't know if people just don't really remember when the Rockets and the Warriors played, and the Rockets I think they missed the most 3-pointers in postseason history. And I just feel like people got to realize live and die by the 3, and they died by the 3. I felt like that played a big part in them losing. I mean, yes, the Bucks did shoot bad from the 3-point line as well, but they have Giannis who destroys and eats inside the 3-point line. So, there's just a lot of bad shooting. I just felt like the Suns really struggled shooting. And I know Jay Crowder was one of the main people who was struggling, but obviously, like I said, Devin Booker was as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to touch on was it's not only that we were missing threes, we were missing like any points that we should have made. We would have an open, like Booker, Jay Crowder, they would have open shots from 3 and miss them. And we would like big points. Like if it was like tied, they would miss an open 3 and then they would get a board and they would miss another shot. Like we weren't getting those second chance opportunities. And then we also weren't playing with like the playmaking we've been using all year. All of their shots were contested ISO shots. They didn't have any, well, they had some, but they didn't have many plays where they were making, Monty. I think it's a bit on Monty for, I think he kind of had them playing ISO, so whoever wasn't on Giannis would go for the basket or something like that, because they were not passing around enough.
Yeah, like there was just some sort of like changes that Monty was sort of making here and there that seemed kind of questionable. Um, but even then, like there were just lots of missed opportunities in game six. There was that one lob that Devin Booker had, and he just missed it right there. And even that, I believe the Suns were down by 4, I think, in this possession. But I think Booker got the steal and he passed it to Cam Johnson, but he overshot it,
Yeah.
and that was a really key bucket, especially when the game was like within 1 to 2 possessions. And I think like also with like the officiating sort of like yeah, I mean yeah, CP3 is 0 for 13 against Scott Foster, and maybe they probably should have chosen somebody better to ref that game. I don't know why, but I just felt like in this game, in that game, they were kind of like trying to look for the foul too much. There were some times where I noticed like CP3 was kind of like galloping in some sort of plays, like trying to draw a foul where, and then, at that point, he's kind of being like pretty careless and, committing some, unforced errors and, turning the ball over a lot more. I didn't really see that much in game 1 and game 2. He just kind of took it over, just drove right to the right and create that mid-range shot, which is like his own shot, right? He was doing that a lot in games 1 and 2, and same with Booker. But I felt like, once that officiating thing was going on, and I feel like they were kind of trying to draw some more fouls and eventually turning the ball over a lot more as well. And that's just something I noticed, because they didn't really have that same energy after game 2.
Yeah, I'd say Booker and Crowder were also culprits. There was even some times
Mm-hmm.
where players in the Bucks were looking for fouls, and I just felt like it was really bad way to play basketball. But I feel like that's the way we've seen it happen a lot this year, until they did enforce that one rule where they changed, like, if the offensive player initiates a contact and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's one foul I do want to talk about, and I feel like we cannot talk about it. The Bobby Portis technical. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of much said about it. My thing is, the one thing I want to talk about it is actually CP3's missed free throw. I felt like missing the free throw was very crucial in that time. They were only down by single digits, and for him to miss a free throw in such a pivotal time, it just it hurt them really, really badly. It's not even really the technical I wanted to talk about itself. It's just the missed free throw. I felt like if he hit that free throw, it definitely could have kept the momentum going for the Suns, because they were definitely not out of the game at any point until, I guess, like literally the last like minute or so. But I feel like that was really one of the biggest kickers for me, in my opinion.
And like it was moments like that, I kid you not, I was screaming at my TV because like the Booker lob, I was so pissed because he literally threw it all the way to the out of bounds and he had to reach it and he couldn't. The missed CP free throw, the Jay Crowder two missed open threes. Like it was moments like that I was like, I knew we were not gonna make it because like it seemed like they're kind of giving up, which is weird because we were so close in a pivotal game 6. You think they'd step it up, or maybe Monty would make some changes if they weren't stepping it up. But I think they had kind of given up at that point, like halfway through game 6. I think they were just beat up from guarding such big guys like Giannis, and Chris Middleton was walking all over them. I think they were just physically beat and mentally beat, and they were just kind of complacent. And like we had, not saying that we lost because of injuries, but I'm saying like I think they had kind of given up with Chris Paul's hand injury. Devin Booker's nose was like it probably wasn't affecting him that much, but and then Torrey Craig's knee injury, which wasn't too serious, but it was sore. Stuff like that, like it wasn't enough to affect their play, but it was enough to affect them mentally, where they were just kind of done with everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, yeah, it sucks that's how it's been, because, this sort of playoffs has actually kind of been, the healthiest team wins at this point, right? Um, like the Suns, like they were really like healthy until sort of the finals where, it started to kind of like they started to break down. But I mean, just so many teams along the way, they faced. You know, there was just so many teams that were riddled with injuries. And then on the Bucks side, I mean, Giannis got that hyperextended knee, yeah, but he recovered after, and he was playing pretty much fine after. And then the only other injury they really had, it was just Dante DiVincenzo. So he was just out for the rest of the playoffs, and instead they put PJ Tucker in the lineup, which was honestly like not really too much. Yeah, which was honestly not really too much of a loss because he was really integral in the series against the Nets, and he was really great in this series too. I mean, it just sucks because that's just how it's been, right? Not to take away from the Bucks championship, but I mean, it's kind of just been like the healthiest team wins, this year.
Well, I slightly agree, but I also have to disagree. On the East, it was I mean, everyone was pretty healthy and towards the end, other than the Nets, who had been struggling with injuries all year, going through the trio in different lineups. The Wizards were fine, other than Bryant. Trey didn't get injured until the Bucks series. Giannis didn't get injured until the Hawks series. The Knicks were pretty healthy. The Sixers were pretty healthy. But then on the West side, I think every team was injured. The first series with the Lakers and the Suns, even though, what was it? Anthony Davis was injured, but Chris Paul was a liability during that series. Like, not only was he playing poorly because he was injured, they would not guard him because they knew he wouldn't make his shot with his shoulder injury. So I think the Suns get a pass on that one. The Nuggets didn't have any injuries other than Jamal Murray, but that shouldn't affect their playoff standing because he was injured all season. You don't expect anything more than that because he already was injured. The Trailblazers were fine. They just lost. The Grizzlies were fine. Who else was there? The Jazz were fine. The Suns were pretty fine overall, other than some small injuries along the way. I think that people are overhyping the narrative a little bit.
My thing is, the Jazz weren't 100%. I know Mitchell was still coming back from his injury because he did miss the first game of the Grizzlies series, which that was the only game the Grizzlies won in that series.
Oh, I missed Clippers Kawhi injury.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these injuries were kind of like nagging injuries from pretty much maybe even from the bubble all the way to now, because I just felt like the shortened offseason really did affect a lot of these players' conditioning and health. I don't want to discredit any finals or any, way to the finals. I think the Suns played a good and strong, lineup of teams to the finals. Kawhi didn't play, but, Kawhi, he's had knee injuries before. I mean, if we want to say that, I mean, the Warriors, was it 2017, 2018 championship? Didn't really mean too much because they essentially had to take out Kawhi to pretty much make it to the finals. Injuries, I don't like getting into that because you can really nitpick and discredit a lot of teams' way to their finals and even put an asterisk next to certain ones. Because even the Warriors' first championship of that championship run they had 2015, 2016, I think it was 2015 finals when they beat the Cavaliers. Kevin Love and Kyrie both were out. You could put an asterisk next to that championship. I mean, think of the Raptors championship. Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, at the point of that series, were all out. You can put asterisks, but it just really gets very nitpicky when you start going down that way. So I don't want to discredit the Suns and their way to the finals. I don't want to discredit the Bucks and their way to the finals.
Yeah, and and you're right. Like even with sort of like these sort of nagging injuries, right? I mean, we also got to give credit to them for making it also healthy as well, because these guys stayed pretty well conditioned, right? I mean, when you have the Nets, I mean, Kyrie, that's a freak kind of injury, right? We can just sort of leave that out. But I mean, we have James Harden. He came to the season completely like out of shape, right? And the Lakers and Anthony Davis, he got the chip, but he didn't really put too much work into his body after that. He kept on having other sort of injuries there, and he hasn't conditioned properly. But the Suns have been pretty fine. They stayed conditioned really, really well. And the Bucks, I mean, Giannis speaks for himself, right? He could have ended his career right there, but he comes back after, and he's just a little Iron Man. And like he just, I don't know how he does it. He came back from that and just absolutely dominated. So yeah, like the healthiest teams did make it like technically, but I mean, in a sense, it's also credit to them because they had really good medical staff. These guys really wanted it, more than anything. And even from like the beginning of the season, lots of people are already speculating that, the Suns and Bucks were kind of, the teams to make it there. And these guys showed it throughout the entire season that they wanted, not just through the playoffs, but, throughout the season too. It was all year, these guys wanted the most. And I'm really glad that I got to see these two play.
Yeah, very exciting finals to say the least. But there is one more thing I do want to talk about. And when you really look at this Bucks roster, look at PJ Tucker, spent a lot of time in the D League at the point. That's how long he's been in the league, the D League. And he spent some time over in Europe. You think of guys like, Diakite, he was in the G League. Chris Middleton was in the G League at one point. Drew Holiday, he was on the Sixers when they were really bad. Like, a lot of these dudes went through a long process and really went through, a lot of things to get to this moment. A lot of these players were second-round picks, late first-round picks. I mean, Bobby Portis, they said this was his fourth team and for the last 4 years. So, when you really look at this, I mean, obviously think of even Giannis' story. How, he was a young player. No one really had much. Not want to say people didn't have hope, but, people really, there was points where people kind of doubted him. He was a young foreign player. No one really knew much about his film. And I was like, okay, we'll see what this guy has. But now he's a 2-time MVP and finals MVP and a champion. When you really think about this, the Sixers kept saying for years and years, trust the process. When you really look at it, the Bucks really were the ones with the process that it was worth trusting. And, that to me within itself was impressive because there's a lot of people who question Giannis's loyalty. Like, he's too loyal to a fault. And people are like, why would he want to stay in Milwaukee? It's a small market team. They're not going to go anywhere. Like I said earlier in the podcast, how Mike Budenholzer could have possibly been fired after this season if they didn't make it or win the finals. Like, there was going to become a boiling point with this team, but this kind of, rewards this whole process. And for me, it's a bit of a Cinderella story. And it's that's why for me, it's really nice to see the Bucks win this finals. No offense to the Suns. It would have been nice to see them win. It would have been nice to see Chris Paul get his first ring, see D Book and Aiden get the ring. But, at the same time, with this finals, the Bucks, they really did trust the process and it really did work out for them.
Yeah.
And the biggest winner for this whole series is small market teams. I think it's going to change like small market franchises for the far future. Because this is like, if this keeps happening every year, like a Suns Bucks kind of finals, or maybe we get a Trailblazers and I don't know, Wizards, I guess, are a small market team, kind of. But it's just like stuff like that. Like, it's going to be a big change in sports in general.
Agreed. Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, the Bucks, they really did the process right. I just looked up this recently, but Brook Lopez is their only the lottery guy. He was the one, I think he was taking a 10th, and as you were saying, Trey, like everybody else was either like G League or, they were in other teams or playing like overseas. And yeah, it's also just credit to Giannis for staying. That one tweet that was brought up that he's never leaving until they win the championship. And he sort of jokes about it after the press conference. He's like, all right, I'm going to trade now. That kind of thing. It's great. It's great to see, man. Finally, it's just like, lots of people are saying, oh, I'm not going to watch this. But, this was just really exciting to see for once, to see different guys and other small market teams. And just to see the excitement from the crowds too. Like, it was so nice to see these people back in the stands after, a crazy sort of like 2 years that we've had. With like the NBA season canceled and after that, like the bubble and like limited attendance. And now we see like this happen again. It's a great sight to see after so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I was going to say something.
I have a remark. Congratulations to Torrey Craig on his ring.
Oh yes. that. Yes.
And did you see DJ Wilson also tweeted out saying that he's a champion. He's on the Rockets now. He got traded midway through the season. I laughed at that because Draymond Green said, "Yeah, go back to sleep, DJ." I was like, oh, that's disrespectful. But congrats to the Bucks, and great season to them, and we're looking forward to the next NBA season because like you said, smart market teams, it's a big win for them and leaves the door big, wide open. And I remember what I was going to say now. This is one of the few times where we see where there's a player who's not great at shooting, like Giannis, where they build the perfect team around him. They got the shooters, they got the defenders, they got players who can facilitate. I think that trade for Drew Holiday really made a big difference because I look back at his stats yesterday and he nearly had a triple-double in Game 6. Yeah, he didn't shoot very well. He was awful. He was shot like 21%, but he had like 9 rebounds and 11 assists. And sometimes you forget about that. Sometimes, it's the little things that we just don't acknowledge. And then you look at it in the grand scheme of things and all just comes together.
Yeah, I agree, man. They did a great job building that team around Giannis, and I'm really glad that he signed that extension. He's gonna have a great time over there, and the Milwaukee Bucks, they're gonna be a great team for many years to come.
Yeah, and I guess on that note, we'll close out this one, guys. We really appreciate you guys for checking out our podcast and watching our video and supporting us. We're still trying to make our way to 100 subscribers, so please help out with that process and trust this process as well. Check out our Instagram, our Twitter, check out our website. That's up and it's going. And, just like we say, just appreciate you guys. So just keep watching our videos and keep supporting us. And that's out for me and Trey.
This is Sparsh, and I'm out here.
This is Luke. I'm out.
All right. And have a good day, guys.